Hey guys, it's Tempest, the Flame-Woven Alchemist, and today we are going to go over all the books that I've picked up in the last 4-ish months as an enchanter and an alchemist. Let's get into it, because it's a stack. So if you couldn't tell, I'm a really big fan of books. I like reading about other people's experiences and ways of doing things in order to kind of inspire and transform my own practice. These are books that I've collected over the last several months. We're talking late October up to early January. So the first set, my local metaphysical shop ran a workshop where they had a couple of people come in and do talks. One of them was Ivo Dominguez Jr. I took his workshop on Lightning in a Bottle, which is all about enchanting. And that was a really fun workshop of seeing how other people connect with certain things and what their paths are. And this is the 4 elements of the wise. So this is all about working with just the elements themselves. So I'm super excited to dig into this one. And then we've got The Cauldron and the Drum, A Journey into Celtic Shamanism by Rhonda McCrimmon. And this one I'm not super sure about. Shamanism is something that I keep getting synchronicities pulling me towards in recent days. Well, recent months, technically. But that's one of those paths where it's like there's so much kind of appropriation that goes on with the term shaman. So it hasn't been something that I've been like super gung-ho about looking into. But I work with the Morrigan, so I work with a Celtic deity. And I love working with both cauldrons and drums. So I figured this one might be an interesting place to start. And then I have Real Alchemy, a primer of practical alchemy, and Real Alchemy II, The Way of the Crucible, both by Robert Allan Bartlett. And so this was a really fun read. This one, I actually read the first one all the way through. I've not gotten into the second one yet. But so I practice artistic alchemy. I'm someone who works with materials and waking them up and creating something new out of it. This is all about kind of practical alchemy. It's got an introduction to kind of where some of the beliefs that are kind of core to alchemy come from. I really enjoyed the first portion of the book. The first, probably about third. I'm a person who dog ears, and like most of my dog ears so I dog ear information that I want to go back to when I go back through and actually take notes on things. And most of my dog ears ended up on like the first third of the book. And this is really where we talked about the different kind of things that play into alchemy, some of the core beliefs of like Hermetics, for example, talking about the Emerald Tablet. Then we get into practical alchemy with plants. So spagyrics, I believe is how that one's pronounced. And then in the end we have working with mineral alchemy, working with the metals and things. So this was a really interesting read. I don't really do a lot of laboratory alchemy. I don't know that I will attempt some of these, but I do want to go through and see if I can form some deeper relationships with some of my plant allies through spagyrics. So that's the first set of 4. Put those back on the to-be-read bookshelf. Next, we have the Duergarbok, which is about the Dwarves' northern tradition and is by Susannah Ravenswing. So this is all about the Duergar, the dwarves from Norse mythology, and what it's like to work with them and form relationships with them. I think this is a fantastic book. If you are someone who does a lot of enchanting, if you are someone who, is interested in making as a sacred path, I'd highly, highly recommend it. The Duergar are definitely a group of spirits that I am working on creating a working relationship with. So this is super exciting to be able to read through. This was one that I'd gotten, I think, in late November, early December, something like that. Ravens Forge put on a online workshop, and Susannah Ravenswing was one of their presenters. I watched her segment on sacred making. I'd actually already purchased the book after reading the blurb about her when I signed up for the workshop, as well as after I got told by a very specific dwarven spirit that I needed to get my shit together, and that I had work to do, so that I needed to get to it. So this one is very much going to be kind of a staple in my practice going forward, and there's a couple other books mentioned in here that I need to pick up that have more information on the Duergar in them. So there's that one. And then we get into the Christmas gifts. So I'm super blessed in that my family knows that I am a witch and that I love witchy things. So they will buy me books off of my book wish list. So the first one that I got this year is Cunning Words, a grimoire of tales and magic. And I'm not a big traditional witchcraft person, but when I tell you I devoured this book, it is so good. If you are a witch, if you have interest in folklore, and kind of like Grimm's fairy tales with a witchy theme to them, 100% fabulous book. Marshall is just a fabulous person, I think. Really, really fabulous, very inclusive fairy tales. And I love this book. I will be rereading this one pretty often. And I'm super excited to try out some of the charms that are in here. It'll be interesting to adapt them to my own practice. I don't work with thread all that often, and I tend to work more with mineral allies rather than plant allies. I'm super duper excited about this one. I was actually so excited about it that I, with my Christmas money, bought the Red Mother. So this is the next one in the series, and this has to do with one of the characters in the book and more about her. And she is a weaver. And she weaves thread, and I weave metal. And I am super excited to be able to dig more into her story and be able to create kind of a working relationship with this archetype, egregor, spirit, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'm super excited about this one. So next we have Egyptian Myths and Legends. This is one that was not on my list, but my little brother got it for me. And I'm actually super excited because alchemy, kind of the birthplace of a lot of alchemy, was Egypt. Thoth, I think it's pronounced Thoth, is one of the deities most associated with alchemy, along with Hermes. Kind of the combination of the two of them I've heard is Hermes Trismegistus. So I'm super excited to kind of dig into this and see a little bit more of the mythology behind Thoth and some of the other Egyptian deities. Then we have a couple of alchemy books. First we have The Hermetic Marriage of Art and Alchemy, Imagination, Creativity, and the Great Work by Marlene Seven Bremner. And this is one where they're exploring the connections between surrealism and alchemy. As someone who is an artistic alchemist, I thought that that was a really interesting thing to be able to dig into, to learn about kind of the symbolism in a lot of the great works of various artists. So kind of an intersection of the art and the occult world, and I'm super excited to get to read this one. And then we have Splendor Solis, the world's most famous alchemical manuscript. So this one, these two were both on my list. So this is one of the books that I think Ivy the Occultist recommends in her video on alchemy. There are artworks and detailed instructions of the great work of transmuting a base material into the Philosopher's Stone. This is one of the kind of alchemical texts of a manuscript that we have from antiquity. And this book isn't a witch's take on those things. This is very much scholars analyzing the texts. Yeah, there's one of the authors in particular in here. It's very clear about what Splendor Solis is not. It says, alchemy in general have been subjected to various unsustainable interpretations. Many of these derive from the Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung's theory of archetypes. Significant patterns and images derived from mythology, religion, dreams, and art that reside in our collective cultural unconscious and influence our attitudes and behavior. Goes down here, and it says, but the modern trend, initiated by Jung, of projecting these images backwards and inferring that the alchemists were also writing about psychological and spiritual conditions, simply will not fly. Not someone who's looking at this from the lens of a magical practitioner, very much a historical kind of analyst sort of thing. So this one's going to be a project book. This one's going to take me a while to get through. The language in this one is very scholarly and a little bit kind of like complicated just for the purpose of being complicated, right? Some of those where it kind of, there's certain language that you use when you're just trying to prove how smart you are to a bunch of people. This kind of reminds me of that. So that's a little bit disappointing. But I am going to work all the way through it. I am going to take notes. I am hoping to get a couple of insights into some of the more ancient alchemy systems and beliefs. So these ones are more project books with historical context rather than magical workbooks. And then next, I have The Bones Fall in a Spiral, a necromantic primer by Mortellus. And this is, I'm part of Ivy the Occultist's book club. I want to really read more books about magic this year. I have a tendency to like get partway through a book, but then not actually finish it. My ADHD generally means that I like move on to something else, right? So, trying the book club. I've never actually done a book club. This is the first time like reading with a group of people since like high school. So far it's been really an interesting read. And it's been really interesting getting to hear all of kind of like the ways that other people have kind of viewed it and what other people's reactions to things are. But I'm not a necromancer. I'm not someone who really works with human spirits all that much. I tend to kind of tune the human spirits out the same way I tune out human beings because I'm an introvert and I'm, neurodivergent, so I spend most of my time kind of shutting random people out. But this is certainly some stuff in here already that has to do with astral travel, kind of to different realms, that I'm excited to work on actually like tweaking and making it applicable to my own practice. Because really, that's the whole point of reading stuff, right? Is to learn, to challenge your beliefs, to expand your awareness, and then you take what resonates and you kind of just leave what doesn't, right? It's one of those where an author cannot tell you how you are going to experience the world, right? All they can do is share with you how they have experienced the world. It's up to you to determine if that is applicable to your world or if it's not. So this one's been really interesting. I have a whole bunch of dog-eared pages on the portions that I've read through. So it'll be interesting to see what my final verdict on this one is. And then the final two books. So this is a new author for me. This is a couple of books by Nicholas Pearson. And Nicholas, I found this author through Marshall, the Witch of Southern Light. He and Bane X Bramble, I think is the Instagram handle, have a podcast. So Marshall is the author of these two. And they have a podcast where they talk to a bunch of different practitioners and they talk about a whole bunch of different witchcraft subjects. And one of the people that they had on was Nicholas Pearson. And I really, really enjoyed the way that he talked about minerals as allies rather than kind of just boiling down to them to their correspondences as ingredients, right? So, bought a couple of his books. I've gone through, so this is a reference book, there's 450 different gemstones in here. I've already read the first part about working with crystals and crystal shapes and storing them and like kind of the basic correspondences and how he works through things. And I think this might be my new favorite quick reference guide. I have up on my shelf, I've got all three of the crystal Bibles, and those have been my reference guides for a really long time, but I think I might actually be moving over to this one. This is the reference guide, specifically because Nicholas talks about the material component of things rather than just the properties. So I'm really happy with this one. And then we have the Seven Archetypal Stones, their spiritual powers and teachings. Again, Nicholas Pearson is the author. And so this is about obsidian, jade, lapis lazuli, emerald, quartz, amethyst, and diamond. and really looking at them as kind of the 7 archetypes of crystals. And I am super excited to be able to dig into this one. As you can see, my to-be read pile is enormous, but books, man. I love books. So that's an overview of things that I've added to my library as an alchemist, as an enchanter, as someone who works with minerals and mineral properties, as well as like just some fun witchy books. Reminder, you don't need to have a ton of books, right? Reading is great, but there really is no replacement for experience, right? Witchcraft is a practice. You have to go out and practice it. If you aren't able to get to books, if you don't have access to your local library, or your local library doesn't really carry a lot of metaphysical books, you can still go out and learn the same things and form your own practice without them. But they are nice to have. As always, keep making magic. Well, hello. What? Hello, child. I'm in the middle of a video. Okay, you're just here to stay now? Okay.